"Get out of here! You don't belong in this neighborhood!" The sharp crack of a hand striking flesh echoed at the gated entrance. A black woman stumbled back, clutching her cheek, eyes wide with shock. Towering over her stood the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, face twisted with arrogance, daring anyone to challenge her. Around them, neighbors froze, whispering, watching, too afraid to intervene. But in just minutes, the gate would open again, and her powerful husband, a county sheriff, would arrive. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if you were her? Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday afternoon. Maya, a young black professional in her early 30s, had driven across town to visit her aunt who lived in a gated suburban community. She carried a tote bag filled with homemade food, humming softly to herself as she pulled up to the entrance. For Maya, family visits were her safe space, an escape from the constant pressures of work and city life. The last thing on her mind was conflict. The neighborhood itself looked like something out of a magazine. Neatly trimmed lawns, flower beds bursting with color, and expensive cars lined the pristine driveways. It was the kind of place people worked decades to afford. But Maya didn't live there. She was only visiting, and in communities like this, outsiders were often viewed with suspicion. As she rolled down her window at the gate, she typed in her aunt's guest code, waiting for the iron bars to slide open. The moment felt ordinary, almost too ordinary, yet hidden behind the calm surface was a storm waiting to break. Just a few steps away, a woman was watching. She wasn't just any neighbor. She was the self-appointed enforcer of the HOA rules, a woman others quietly called Karen behind her back. Always watching, always policing, especially when it came to people who didn't look like they belonged. Maya didn't notice at first. She was focused on her phone, sending a quick text to let her aunt know she had arrived. But the woman noticed her, every detail, every movement, her eyes narrowing as if Maya's very presence was an offense. It wasn't the first time this woman had confronted someone at the gate. She thrived on it, feeding off the power it gave her. For Maya, the day had begun with nothing more than the thought of a warm meal and laughter with family. What she didn't know was that the next few minutes would test her patience, her dignity, and even her safety in ways she could never have imagined. What would you do if you pulled up to a gate like this, not realizing someone was already plotting to stop you from ever getting inside? Maya barely had time to press send on her text before the sound of hurried footsteps broke the quiet. The woman stormed toward her car, her voice sharp, cutting through the warm afternoon air. She demanded to know why Maya was there, what business she had, who she thought she was to even touch the keypad. Her tone wasn't curious, it was accusatory, dripping with contempt. At first, Maya tried to remain calm. She explained that she was visiting her aunt and had been given the entry code. But the woman didn't care. She leaned closer, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, as though Maya's words were nothing but lies. She circled Maya's car slowly, like a predator inspecting prey. Neighbors across the street began to peek through their curtains, some even stepping onto their porches, drawn by the commotion. Yet no one intervened. The woman's voice grew louder, and the insults harsher. She accused Maya of trespassing, of sneaking in, of being up to no good. Every word stung, not because they were true, but because Maya knew this wasn't about rules or gates. It was about the color of her skin. The message was clear. People like her weren't welcome here. Maya's heart pounded as she stepped out of the car, trying to hold her ground. She repeated that she was there to see her aunt. But the woman blocked her path, arms spread wide as if daring her to try. The gate loomed behind them, still closed, turning what should have been a simple visit into a humiliating standoff. And then it happened, the sudden, sharp slap across Maya's face. The sound cracked in the air like thunder. For a moment, time froze. Maya staggered back, hand instinctively rising to her cheek, stunned by the sheer audacity. Gasps echoed from nearby residents, their faces a mixture of shock and fear. Phones appeared in hands, cameras recording. The scene had transformed into a spectacle, the kind people would whisper about long after the moment passed. But the woman wasn't finished. With a smug smirk, she announced loudly that her husband was on his way. Not just any husband, a sheriff. The weight of those words hung in the air like a warning, a threat of authority that could crush any resistance. Maya's stomach sank. This wasn't just a neighborhood dispute anymore. The power dynamic had shifted dangerously. Still, Maya refused to back down. She stood tall, though her cheek burned and her eyes stung with unshed tears. She knew that running or breaking down would only fuel the woman's twisted sense of control. Around them, the crowd grew larger. Some whispered encouragement. Others simply watched in silence, afraid of being dragged into the storm. Minutes stretched like hours as Maya waited. The gate behind her still locked, her freedom just out of reach. The air grew heavy with anticipation, the sound of an approaching car engine faint in the distance. Everyone knew what was coming next, the sheriff's arrival, and with it, the moment that would decide whether Maya walked away with her dignity or became yet another story of power abused and justice denied. The growl of an engine broke the tension, and a black and white sheriff's SUV rolled up to the gate. The woman straightened instantly, her smug smile widening. She waved him down like a queen summoning her knight. Maya's pulse quickened as the man stepped out, uniform pressed, badge gleaming, authority radiating from his every move. The crowd fell silent, waiting to see which side of justice he would stand on. He didn't ask questions. He didn't look at Maya as an innocent visitor. Instead, his eyes locked on her with suspicion, already painting her as the problem. His wife wasted no time spinning her story of a trespasser, her voice trembling with false outrage. She clutched her hand dramatically, claiming she had been attacked first. The lie poured from her lips so easily, so confidently, that a few in the crowd even looked at Maya with doubt. Maya's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, but she knew the weight of the uniform in front of her. One wrong word, one wrong gesture, could mean everything spiraling out of control. The sheriff's hand hovered near his belt, a silent threat that made her knees weaken. And yet, phones were still recording. Dozens of eyes were fixed on the scene, witnesses who had seen the slap, who had heard the insults. For the first time, the sheriff noticed the cameras. His jaw clenched. This wasn't a quiet neighborhood dispute anymore. This was a moment that could go viral in seconds. Maya met his gaze. She didn't flinch. She stood tall despite the sting on her cheek, despite the fear clawing at her insides. The crowd seemed to lean in, holding its breath, waiting to see if power would crush truth, or if truth would finally push back. The sheriff's next words would decide everything. What do you think he's about to do? Protect his wife or confront the truth? Drop your prediction in the comments. The silence stretched long, heavy as stone. Then the sheriff turned, not to Maya, but to his wife. His eyes hardened as he noticed the sea of phones pointed their way. One word from him could bury the truth or expose it. The weight of his badge, his marriage, his reputation, it all balanced on the edge of his decision. Neighbors stepped closer, no longer just bystanders. A few brave voices broke through, calling out what they had seen, that Maya had done nothing wrong, that it was his wife who struck first. The air shifted. The sheriff's authority was no longer absolute. It was being tested, measured against the undeniable reality of witnesses and cameras. For a moment, Maya felt small, caught in a fight she never asked for. But as she stood there, chin lifted, she realized something. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every person who had been dismissed, disrespected, or targeted simply for existing in the wrong place, in the wrong skin. She embodied their voices, their strength, their resilience. Finally, with a tight jaw, the sheriff told his wife to step back. His words were clipped, his face pale with the recognition that this scene would live beyond the gates of their neighborhood. He didn't apologize. He didn't admit fault. But he didn't arrest Maya either. The slap, the humiliation, the lies, they would follow his wife long after the cameras stopped recording. Maya walked through the gate that day, not with ease, not without scars, but with dignity unbroken. The sting on her cheek would fade, but the lesson never would. Power only holds as long as silence remains. This wasn't just one story. It's the story of countless others who've been told they don't belong. The question is, how many more times will this play out before the world finally listens? Show some love with a like and subscribe to stay inspired.